Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm Erin, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction play to see if there are five or a flop.
Our theme for season 6 is All the World's a Stage, and this week we are reading The Crucible by Arthur Miller.
And I have been looking forward to this one all season. I think, at least from my experiences and what I knew about all of these plays going in, this was the most hyped one, and I was interested to see why.
Did you say previously that you had not read it before?
I had not, and actually, I'm going to say something that's going to make me sound really uneducated. I've never read it, and I did not know it was like an allegory for McCarthyism until you said that on a previous episode.
Well, but then you read it, and you're like, oh, yeah.
Then I read it, but I was like, I was like, this is strictly about the Salem witch trials, nothing. And then you said that, and then I had to be like, oh, right, of course, I knew that.
Well, what have you been up to? What have you been reading, etc.?
What have I been up to? I recently went up to visit my mom in Boston. Santiago had a bachelor party in Vermont for our friend Matt. So he was like, oh, let's drive up and I'll drop you and Flynn at your mom's, which was great in theory, but it was 2 hours out of the way for him, which was unfortunate. We made it up when we were coming home. Like, my mom drove me out to Western Mass to meet him on the way, which was great. But it was really nice. I had a very nice time just kind of sitting around with her. We got some nice dinners. We read some books. We went to her version of McKay's bookstore, which is called, I believe, just Used Bookstore.
For anyone in the Boston area.
Exactly. There you go. So I came home with a big stack of books. Some as has already been posted on Instagram for future seasons of the pod, and some just repeat pod authors, and some Dear Americas.
For our interested listeners who might want to snoop about season 7.
Exactly. What have you been up to?
Well, I have come off like my back-to-back-to-back travel weekends, which you all have heard about. So I have been really hardcore doing nothing.
Relax maxing. I'm relaxed pilled, you could say. Yeah.
But
Incredible.
that has included some very fun reading, actually.
Okay.
So kind of unintentionally, I've ended up reading a lot of classics this year that I haven't read before, such as you reading The Crucible.
I thought I was going to be reading a lot more classics this year, and then I just got sucked into the YA world.
Yes, exactly. And you are more dedicated to that than I am to the classics.
It's because they're so much quicker.
Because you can read them faster, yeah. But I just read Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I don't know if you have ever read Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
I have not, but I've heard of it, of course.
I feel like this is one that often slips through the cracks because, like, they are definitely not teaching this one in a lot of high schools.
No. Because
it centers on a rape. Mm-hmm. But it is beautifully written.
Really?
So, yes. And I read it, like, I kind of feel like how I could compare it to what you were saying about when you read Wuthering Heights. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously it is older language, but it's not a slow read.
Yeah.
So I would recommend Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out.
Yes.
Once I continue working my way through these YA books.
Do you have anything up next?
I do. Well, I have one that I finished when I was at my mom's. I actually read it in one day. It was very fast.
Ooh.
That being said, very poorly written.
Okay.
And that was Shatter Me.
I have been interested in this.
I forget the author's name, and I'm not pulling it up on Storygraph right now. But it's the first of 6 books, and I read this first one in high school, and probably middle school, more accurately. It didn't really grab me. It's basically like if she touches people, they like get immense pain.
Oh,
and like it can die.
But okay, I thought they always died.
Of course, the love interest she can touch, no problem.
Great.
And the villain who they're trying to make a love triangle. I don't know if it's going to be a love triangle. That's the vibe I'm feeling, but I'm only 1 book in. Really poorly written, but I'm like, you know what? Fine.
Not in a way that is as offensive to you as The Selection, for example.
Oh my god, I've been seeing so much about The Selection on Twitter lately, and I don't know why.
I guess because your phone listens to you? I don't know.
Yeah, because it's eavesdropping on the pod. But yeah, so yeah, not as offensively bad as The Selection. It's not like The Selection, I think I found the plot beats very cringy versus this, and the writing versus this one, it's more so just the writing.
Okay.
But I'm excited. I mean, excited is a bold statement there for the next 5 in the series.
That's long.
But they're quick. It was like 350 pages, but it was so
You
fast.
fly. Okay.
So that also makes it a lot easier. And I'm not doing it as an audiobook. So.
Okay. Well, great.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, should we read the synopsis for The Crucible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The place is Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, an enclave of rigid piety huddled on the edge of a wilderness. Its inhabitants believe unquestioningly in their own sanctity, but in Arthur Miller's edgy masterpiece, that very belief will have poisonous consequences when a vengeful teenager accuses a rival of witchcraft, and then those accusations multiply to consume the entire village. First produced in 1953 at a time when America was convulsed by a new epidemic of witch hunting, The Crucible brilliantly explores the threshold between individual guilt and mass hysteria, personal spite and collective evil. It is a play that is not only relentlessly suspenseful and vastly moving, but that compels readers to fathom their hearts and consciences in ways that only the greatest theater ever can.
All right.
Often when I am copy and pasting over a synopsis, I will remove a second paragraph like that that's complimentary, but I kept this one just because it included the sentence that says, by the way, this is about McCarthyism.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
So I felt the need to keep it.
For the discerning listener, hopefully they will have picked up on that as well, because we are both prone to doing that, which I think is more than fair enough.
Yes.
But Arthur Miller?
I have a lot of stuff to say about Arthur Miller. You can see in the document that this part is long. So
I guess before you get into that, do you want to talk, have you read this before?
I have. Okay. I have read it once or twice, and I have seen a production of it.
Okay. They did it in my high school. So my sister was in theater, so it must have been after she graduated because I did not go see it.
Okay.
But hopefully, not that she listens to the pod, but maybe one day she will correct me on if it was just one she wasn't involved in.
Okay. I saw it also as a high school production, and my friend Kate of Death Comes as the End fame was in it. So I saw it at her high school. So shout out to Kate.
Who was she? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Okay. She was not Abigail, or I would remember that.
Okay.
I think she maybe was one of the accusers.
Okay, fair enough.
So evil, so not great. But so when I do research on a pod author, I use the Wikipedia page as a jumpstart point to direct me other places. And I copied over this sentence just because I feel like it demonstrates a lot of what this man has going on. Miller was often in the public eye, particularly during the late 1940s, 1950s, and early 1960s. During this time, he received a Pulitzer Prize for drama, testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee, and married Marilyn Monroe.
Oh my God, he was getting around.
He was busy. So, Arthur Miller was born in 1915 to a pretty wealthy family. However, they lost everything in the Depression, in the crash. So he was paying his way through college. He also, I have not seen any other pod author, at least that I have researched, have such a dedication to the place they went to college. The only theater in the world named after Arthur Miller is at the University of Michigan.
And that's where he went to college.
And that's where he started writing plays. His first big hit was a play called All My Sons that came about 10 years after he graduated from Michigan.
And Michigan's a pretty big theater school.
Yes, to this day.
Because that's where Star Kid was based and all of that, right?
Yeah. I think they have a good drama program.
Yeah. Well, Darren Criss.
Well, And so from right off the bat in the beginning of his career, one of his collaborators was the director Elia Kazan, which if people have heard of him, you'll know what's coming with that. But he also worked with him on Death of a Salesman, which is, I think, the most acclaimed play prize-wise that Arthur Miller ever wrote. You could argue this one might be more popular, but I might give edge to Death of a Salesman.
Yeah.
I haven't actually read it or seen it.
That was a contender for when we go to New York, we're seeing Hadestown, but it was a contender to see Death of a Salesman, but we weren't sure if Nathan Lane was still going to be in it or not. So.
Worth skipping, I see, because I would want to see Nathan Lane.
Yes.
So, but Death of a Salesman was the first play to win the Tony for Best Play, the Pulitzer for Best Drama, and the Drama Critics Circle Award.
Wow.
So, big trio. However, Arthur Miller and Elia Kazan fell out because Elia Kazan famously named names testifying before HUAC.
Oh.
So then Arthur Miller wrote his play A View from the Bridge, which has to do with a working man betraying his peers. And he sent it to him basically just to be like, I want you to know what I think of you.
Incredible.
Yeah. So then The Crucible was written in 1953 as a response to McCarthyism in the House Un-American Activities Committee. They did not like that. And so they called him to testify in 1956. He basically said beforehand, don't ask me to name names because I won't. And the chair agreed to that. But then, of course, they asked him to name names. He refused.
Much like, as we shall shortly see in The Crucible.
Exactly. He refused and was sentenced to contempt of Congress. I think he spent a little time in jail. But on appeal, his conviction was overturned because they had promised not to ask him to name names.
Yeah.
So also, backing up a little bit, he married his first wife in 1940, and they had 2 kids. He left her in 1956 to marry Marilyn Monroe, very famous movie star, obviously, at the time. They were married for 5 years. She divorced him in 1961, and then Marilyn Monroe died in 1962. So also in 1962, Arthur Miller married Ingeborg Morath, who's a photographer, and they were stayed married until she died. So they were married for 40 years. However, I did not know this at all. They had 2 children, including a son named Daniel, who had Down syndrome.
Okay.
And Arthur Miller spent his whole life pretending that this son didn't exist at all.
Oh, God.
So he had him put in an institution against Ingeborg's wishes. She went to go visit. He would never go visit.
Holy shit.
And there's a play called Fall, which is based on the 2 of them and Daniel.
Wow.
Yeah. So I included that because I had no idea that any of that happened, So
yeah.
After his wife died in 2002, he is an 80-year-old man plus. He announced that he was going to marry a 35-year-old photographer.
No.
But then 3 months after that, before they could get married, he died. And his children were like, okay, you have to leave. No.
Yeah.
So he died of heart failure at the age of 89.
Okay, so some really heinous stuff buried in here?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Big life.
Big life.
And I didn't even mention that his son-in-law is Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, which is also crazy. And that was the daughter he had with
Ingeborg.
Yeah.
Yes, with his third wife. And they met because Daniel Day-Lewis was playing John Proctor in the movie version of The Crucible.
When did that come out, do you know?
90...
I think you texted me. I think you just said 90s. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, well... Fascinating life. Wish we could get his take on Fellow Travelers, because that's probably our most comparable.
I don't know what he would think about gay people. I genuinely have no idea.
I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I don't even have an inkling of a guess. But Fellow Travelers had similar themes explored.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we just skip to the disclaimer? I feel like we've talked about our foreknowledge of this play and Arthur Miller already.
Absolutely. Our disclaimer is that our judgments come based on the play and characters within the play rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, which
is all of them.
And spoilers ahead, although, I guess it was a spoiler for me that this was about McCarthyism, but I think other than that, there's not really, it's the Salem witch trials, you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah. But, we'll get into later what was kind of tweaked for the play and what was not.
Yes.
Yeah. But what was your first take on it?
Oh my God. Finally a play in many weeks I really enjoyed. And also finally about a play about religious persecution that's not Catholic.
Honestly.
So that was refreshing. I really liked it. I feel like I have this, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe, I don't know. I had this memory that everyone at theater in my high school was bummed out they were doing this one.
But it's so fun.
I know, maybe I'm misremembering it. I don't know. But I was not that excited about this one. I loved it. I had a great time reading it. I thought this one, out of everything we've read, so that's a broad statement to make without having my storygraph list in front of me. But off the top of my head, out of what we've read this whole season, this had the dialogue that evoked the most tension for me.
I think so.
Throughout the play, particularly in the courthouse scenes, but throughout the play.
And we talked a lot about some of our recent reads having those moments where we expect the tension to be ratcheted and then those moments kind of getting skipped.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they were showing Galileo the instruments.
Exactly.
But that is definitely not the case here. You see all of it in excruciating detail. And There's a lot of instances of it. Like when the courts go to the proctor's house and they find the doll that is on the table. Even at the end where puppet. They're trying to get John Proctor to sign his name and he's like, okay, I'll do it, but then I won't, but then I'll write an X, but I won't sign my name.
The parallels of him and Joan ripping up their confessions at the end. I'm sure we'll get to that when we talk about the end.
Yeah, we can't skip there yet. But the characters, I did not remember how many there were. There's a lot of them. And especially at the beginning, you get kind of eased into it which is interesting to me. I did not really remember, at least in the copy that I have, there's almost paragraphs of like, it's not stage directions, but it's just kind of contextual info that you're not getting seeing the production, but you're getting it reading the script.
I was going to ask you if that was, because I borrowed your copy, if that was just a your copy edition type of deal, or if that's in everything. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was helpful to get that throughout the text, especially because many of the plays we've read have been based on like actual people, actual stories, rather than just like set in a period. And I usually don't read like the preface or anything, so I'm not always getting the full history going in.
Yeah. So, and it was helpful here, and I think it would be helpful if you were an actor like portraying one of those characters to be like, this is the rich guy in town, and he tries to buy up everyone's land, and obviously they get like more specific than that. But, and it fades as the play is going on. It's not all like it. It's mostly for early on character introductions to give you more context. But that seemed like an interesting, helpful tool for when these plays get actually put into use as like a play, but also not bad to read.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. I thought it added a lot of context because, again, like, I feel like more so rather than something I learned about in school, more so like just kind of pop culture knowledge of the Salem witch trials. You know, I have like this general idea of like what's going on, but learning those specifics for the characters, super helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
I think just overall, and I as I said already, like this play does such a good job building tension throughout, and big kudos to the pacing in this.
Yes, the pacing and the reveal of information was very good.
Very good.
Like the first scene, you don't really know what's going on, and then it becomes clear that Abigail is a little nefarious and she's kind of the head of this group of teenage girls. Then you find out that she got fired from working at the Proctors because she was sleeping with John Proctor. And then you find out like that Mary Warren wants to recant and Abigail manages to pressure her into not doing it. And then at the end, you're not really sure until the very end if John Proctor is going to be hanged or not. And then, you know, spoilers, he is.
Yes. And I think they do such a good job, I think Arthur Miller does such a good job of really pushing that forward and not peeling back the curtain too much throughout. And I think that sense of confusion works really well in a time period, both Salem witch trials and McCarthyism, that's so rooted in confusion and not really knowing like what's true and what's not true.
Yes. And so he's made a lot of good choices here, especially about what to include. Like the affair between John Proctor and Abigail Williams is one of the most important, if not the most important, things that drives the action of the whole play. But it's already happened and is over by the time the play starts. Like he could have shown us the affair in action, but he didn't. Like, and he made really smart, just like craft choices in writing this. Like, it's not surprising to me that he had already written things like All My Sons and Death of a Salesman before he did this. Yeah. Like, this is a guy who knows how a play works, clearly.
Should we go a little into plot over? I don't think we have to do a ton of plot for this one.
No, I think just the quick sum up is that the girls in Salem start accusing people of being witches. Their grasp gets broader and broader and broader. But it's also clear that Abigail Williams has the goal of accusing Elizabeth Proctor, which she does, so that she could be hanged, so that she and John Proctor can get married. And he is clearly trying to disabuse her of the idea that he ever planned to marry her. But then John Proctor himself, for trying to cross Abigail, is accused. And in deciding whether or not to recant, and also kind of as a way to forgive himself and have his wife earn his wife's forgiveness after his affair, he refuses to admit to being a witch and he is hanged.
Yeah. And there's another point with I forgot the other character's name, who has like seen evidence that like what the girls are saying isn't true, but he doesn't want to name names of like who was there to have given him that evidence. So that comes across, like that idea of the McCarthyism, not naming names, like, comes through very presently in the courthouse scenes.
Yes. And the mass hysteria is amongst the people of Salem, but then also you see through the characters of the two judges, who are brought in from the outside and do not come from Salem, but they completely buy in to everything. Even when John Proctor goes and is like, "This girl clearly has a vengeful vendetta against me, and I will tell you why, even though it will sully my good name. He just bends over backwards to justify why that means that the witchcraft accusations are real.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to win.
No, there's no way to win. And my personal favorite scene, and I feel like probably most people's favorite scene, was when all of the girls start, like, Mary's like trying to recant her statement, and all of the girls start acting possessed in the courthouse.
Yes.
And start to mimic her. And then even the judges are like, what is happening?
Yes. Because they, like, oh, it just is so, it would probably be so good to see acted out.
I agree.
The other scene that's so tension-filled is when John Proctor says, like, I cheated on my wife with Abigail and she knows about it. And so then the judge says, okay, go stand and face the corner.
Oh, that was so good.
Go stand and face the corner and I'll bring in your wife and ask her. And so she's torn between being honest and admitting that her husband has committed adultery or, like, trying to cover for him. And she doesn't know what the right thing is to say.
Yeah.
Ooh, that part was so good. It was
really good. The whole time I was just thinking of that tweet that's like, I saw Goody Proctor at the Devil's Sacrament. What were you doing at the Devil's Sacrament? I was thinking of that the whole time.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it is. It's like, you got off the hook if you named names. They're like, okay, if you tell us who did it or who else was there, we're not going to kill you.
Yeah. And none of the characters who we see that are on the, like, good side do any naming of names.
Yeah.
The only people that we see accusing are the group of young girls.
Yes.
And mainly, you know, obviously the play it's portrayed as being driven by Abigail.
Yes.
So, but all of the characters are very unique, I think, and interesting. Abigail and John Proctor are the two main characters, and they are very fascinating to me.
Very interesting characters.
Yes. And really nuanced, I think, types of characters that you don't often see. Okay, maybe Abigail Williams is not very nuanced, but she's very entertaining. I think John Proctor is nuanced in that he's trying to come back from having done a terrible thing to be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk about, like, people disagree or whether or not on how this is aged. Like, we just had that play on Broadway recently called John Proctor is the Villain. Because obviously he's, you know, sleeping with a young girl. But there's, you know, there's, again, like I say, not good nuance. And he admits, like, was not good. Elizabeth Proctor is a really interesting character because she, like, clearly is, like, moving on with her life but has not forgiven her husband, which is interesting to see a woman portrayed that way from this era.
Also, like, I thought the whole conversation between the men was interesting to me when they're like, oh, she says she's pregnant. They're like, well, we'll give her a year and we'll see if she is.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see if she has a baby. Like, that buys you a year with your wife.
Yeah. Ooh. That was chilling. But yeah, like, and the side characters were all interesting. You really saw the ways in which they were just, like, a little mean-spirited town before all of this began. Like, there was the one guy who drags everyone into court all the time. There was the guy who's trying to steal other people's, like, corners of land wherever he can. Like, all of the normal day-to-day kind of spats before you have, you know, something like this happen.
And I think that's what builds a society that's so suspicious of one another, too.
Yeah. Small and insular and religiously demanding.
Yes. Much like McCarthyism.
Much like McCarthyism. Which is bad. This pod is anti-McCarthyism.
If we didn't learn that from fellow travelers.
We know it now.
We do indeed. Yeah, I really like this one. This is one I would really like to see.
Well, let's see. Is there a production of it?
Well, there's the Daniel Day-Lewis
I do want to watch that. And I think Winona Ryder is in that.
Oh.
Yeah, I think she's the Abigail. Okay. Before we move on, I feel like we should return to our St. Joan comparison.
Yes, that I spoiled.
Well, it's the same kind of similar thing at the end where they're presented with a confession and they agree to sign it. And then they have a change of heart or something is said that makes them realize, like, no, I would rather go to my death. And I think that's really well exemplified, actually, in the ending of The Crucible. Because we had mixed feelings about the epilogue of St. Joan, where they tacked on more about the saints and is Earth ready to receive her saints? And we were kind of like, okay, I don't know about that. Yeah. But the ending of The Crucible is the judges going to Elizabeth and being like, you need to talk your husband into like into confessing to being a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, he has his goodness now. I will not take it from him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end. So it's as positive of an ending as you can get when the main character is being hanged.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, it's bad that this is being forced to happen to him, but he's making the right choice for himself and his honor.
Yeah. I will say there was, I don't remember the side character's name. There's someone else who was crushed by rocks.
Giles Corey.
Yes, and I think that is he was the other one who didn't name names.
Yes.
I think that's like, I'd rather be hung.
No, the being pressed. No, I don't want to be pressed.
No, I would have given up. They put the first rock. I'm like, all right, it was this person.
No, I'll tell you. Yeah. Well, it's like Galileo, you only have to put one rock. They only had to show him the instruments. They didn't even use the instruments. Okay. Do we have anything more on the Crucible, or should we get into historical accuracy?
It's kind of one of the ones that, like, I really liked it, so I don't have a lot to say.
I know. We just, like, this is a really good example of craft and storytelling.
Yeah,
Just, read it if you want.
I guess in summary, that is my biggest takeaway, was, like, the craft of this one is superb, especially in comparison to some of the other plays we've read, both that have had great craft in other ways. But I feel like overall, this one, just like from the dialogue to the pacing to even like the stage directions and that historical context, like I think overall this one has just all the elements of craft really working for it.
Yes. Great polish. Okay. Well, then let's do a little bit of historical accuracy. And again, people might be familiar with some of this if you're familiar with the Crucible already, but So all of the characters are real people.
Mm-hmm.
So Abigail Williams, John and Elizabeth Proctor, Giles Corey, Rebecca Nurse, who we didn't mention before, they're all real. The only thing here that's notable is just like the selection of who Arthur Miller decided to include.
Yeah.
There were several judges, and he decided to only have 2 judge characters. There were way more accusing girls.
I think that parsing down was a good decision.
Yes, like, no problem. I think it's smart for a play to have protagonists, so no sweat from me. But the biggest changes were to the central plot, making that work with Abigail Williams and the Proctors.
Okay.
So there's no record that Abigail Williams knew the Proctors at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, they all lived in Salem, but like in the play,
intimately,
she worked at their house.
Yeah.
Like, there's no evidence of that. And then also fiddling with the ages to make the story of the affair more plausible.
Okay.
So in real life, John Proctor was in his 60s. He was in his 30s in the play. And in real life, Abigail Williams was 11 or 12, and in the play, she was 17.
Okay, that's taking a bit of liberties.
Exactly. It's very Disney's Pocahontas.
Yeah, and it's like, I do believe, like, it probably wasn't an affair in real life, but at that point, maybe just, like, it could have been a different, like, it could have been a mate. At that point, I would have rather have seen, like, an invented character.
Yeah. So I think that this is fine for me in terms of, like, artistic license, because he's not necessarily trying to say that he thinks that this did happen. He's very clearly fudging numbers, and the artistic product that came from it is very good. However, all of this really has been constructed to be an allegory for something else.
Yes.
You can't read it and be like, this is what happened in the Salem witch trials, unless you're like taking into account broadly, like, this is what mass hysteria does.
Yes.
The only other thing that is true is it was Abigail Williams who accused the Proctors of witchcraft.
Okay.
Both husband and wife. So, again, Arthur Miller has just fudged those numbers and dates to kind of create a reason for that.
Man, I gotta watch a YouTube video on the Salem witch trials.
I
love
great.
watching a history YouTube video.
And then just lastly, minorly, there were some dates and times moved around.
Yep. Like,
for example, at the end of the play, John Proctor is hanged on the same day as Rebecca Nurse and then one other person who I forget, sorry. And in real life, they were all hanged on different days.
Yeah, that's fine. That change means nothing to me.
Exactly. I think if I were to hazard a guess, I think it would be to show that the witch trials were like gaining, like becoming more of an unstoppable train.
Yeah.
Because Rebecca Nurse is the character that's pointed out as being the one who's like the most clearly a good person. And she's like an old woman, like, So the sign that like she is hanged on the same day as John Proctor, I think, is to be like, there's nothing that, no stopping it now or whatever.
Yeah, it's this snowballing. Yep.
Yeah. Should we hop over to the star calculator?
Yes. Would you like to go first?
I will go first. So for historical accuracy, I am going to have to give this a 2, just because I admire the amount of research in seeing like that all of these people are real, and a lot of them are very minor historical figures, like Mary Warren and all of that. But when you have completely made up the central plot and motivations of the characters, that's, again, even though I'm fine with it having happened because the play is good, like when the category is historical accuracy, this is what you get. However, I do think I'm going to go 5 all the rest of the way down for originality, characters, prose, and vibes. I really like the idea of using the Salem witch trials, which is a, throwback period of American history, to reflect on a current day period of American history. I just like it. I think that also a lot of our fascination with the Salem witch trials was inevitable. Like, I think even if there was no Crucible, there would be a lot of art about the Salem witch trials.
But this
is the thing that people point to. Yeah. So that is a 4.4. The historical accuracy is dragging it down, but I gave this a 5 on Storygraph, like a pure
5. For once in a rare blue moon, I'm going to completely agree with you on everything all the way down the list, and I also gave it a 5 on Storygraph, so this is a 5 to me.
Is that the first time this has ever happened to us?
Probably. Clearly, we have no listeners dedicated enough to do that research for us, because clearly we are not dedicated enough.
Well, also, even when we have a book that we like both really hate, there will be little differences.
Yeah, agreed. But I completely agree with everything you said. The historical accuracy, if I didn't know, I was like prepared to give it 5s all across the board, and then you told me that, and I'm like, this is why we present the historical accuracy to both the other co-hosts and the listeners, because I did not know about that discrepancy. And even if it was like they were things like she did work for them, like even if they were like, even if there was a little bit more,
if you were like those were the ages that they were and he made up the affair, then you'd be like, okay, but like clearly there's a lot of bending over backwards.
Exactly. Which again is fine for the purposes of this art. I think we have had a lot of really, really good things we've read on this pod that, maybe not the most historically accurate, a lot of really bad things we've read that are very historically accurate.
That's not the be-all, end-all.
No.
And as we said before, we should really weight these categories, but I don't think we're going to do that.
And it's also hard because sometimes the history does carry more weight. Like, it very much depends on what we're reading.
Exactly. So, but I'm looking at our list of what we've read so far this season, just so I can remember. I think that we have had 5s separately, but I think this season, this is the first time we both agree that this is a 5.
I agree. I think my only other one was Amadeus.
And mine was the piano lesson.
The piano lesson, which I laugh every time when I said, I don't think this is going to be a memorable one for me, because that is the one, aside from 1776, and I think it's because we saw it on stage, that has been the one I've thought about most. Like, reflected on highly most.
And also, like, you did not know what was to come, which was 4 in a row that you didn't like.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like, I think if you knew that was coming, you would have read the piano lesson with like a different eye.
If the piano lesson was coming after those, 5s across the board. No, but that one is one that I think for me is just sometimes the more you sit with something, the more you enjoy it, the more you think about it and reflect on it. And I think that's what's been happening with me with the piano lesson. So, but yeah, we've had, my slump is ending.
Hooray!
All right. And honestly, all the ones I am pretty excited about from here on out.
Well, I hope that rings true. And I hope you are also excited about what we're reading next week.
I am. And considering I've already read it, I am. We are reading A Man for All Seasons by Robert Bolt.
And yes, before you ask again, this is Catholic persecution. However, it's persecution of Catholics and not by Catholics.
It's not
so
the
it's
church
really
doing the
different.
persecution. So it's no Galileo. It's a little more of a Saint Joan. Well, no, because that was also the church persecuting her. She just was also Catholic.
They just disagreed on what it meant to be Catholic.
Yeah.
Much like how the Pope has recently excommunicated those people.
Exactly. But we'll talk about all that and more when we discuss A Man for All Seasons.
So in the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @5orflop_pod. Like I said last week, and we'll say again, we are over halfway through the season. So if you want to know what else we'll be reading, you can follow our Storygraph reading challenge.
Which has probably been our lowest participation since season 1 because no one cares about plays, apparently.
Boo.
People care about seeing plays. I don't think many people care to read plays.
We're just too intellectual.
You know, we're highbrow here on the pod, clearly. As we'll see once we reveal our season 7 books. But anyways, if you have books you think we should read for future seasons, please use that recommendation form in our bio or shoot us an email at 5orfloppodcast@gmail.com.
And in the meantime,
happy reading!
Bye!